Okay, so this is my initial impression of the Canon RF 200 to 800. Before this I had the Sigma 150 to 600 and it was perfectly reasonable, did the job. Paid £600 for it, second hand. So basically I was in Hong Kong. I started seeing this lens coming up over here in the UK for £2,300. I thought, seeing as that Sigma was £600, I thought I'm not going to spend that kind of money. When I was in Hong Kong and I just walk into a shop and I say, do you have the Canon RF 200 to 800? He says, yeah. And I went, how much? And it was 1,600 quid. And I'm like, oh, it's like a third cheaper. So I sort of did some mental gymnastics and played with it for a while, and then said to myself, well look, try it, and if you take it back to the UK, you'll make your money back, you'll sell it and make a profit. So what's the worst that can happen? Now, dog's going nuts over there. Right, so a lot of people in comparison videos and opinion videos are talking about the Canon 100 to 500, and particularly on an R5, and then cropping it and you get sharper results. What they don't mention are people who film, like myself. I'm using it to film, I'm doing a YouTube channel, I've started filming more, and you can't crop on that, can you? You're not going to keep your 4K, whereas on this you can go the 800 and get your 4K. Now, see, the problem in this game is that we're not all working for National Geographic or BBC Wildlife, are we? You know, we all want to get the latest thing every year, spend £5 on a camera, 15 grand on a prime lens, and they're just, most scenarios you won't even be using that or need it. You could give a professional, you know, a 20-year-old DSLR and a kit lens, and you could give a rank amateur, you know, a 15 grand prime and a 7 grand Sony whatever, and you know, the professional wipe him off the planet. And yeah, it's just they've got us in this kind of a cycle of buying the best stuff, wanting the best stuff, talking about the best stuff, and you do not need it. Most of us don't need it. 99.99% of us are not showing our stuff to anyone of any importance that's going to need that kind of quality that you're going to notice. And the other side is 99.99% of viewers won't be able to tell the difference between, you know, if it's taken with a cheap camera but professional and they know how to use it, they're going to get the best out of it. So what else? Yeah, so some of the points. Okay, it's a bit slow. F9. Now, in most, you can look, if you, well, that's F9 is at 800mm. So if you put it at 600mm, you get back down to F8. Now, when I was using my Sigma 150 to 600, I was my usual F number was always 8. It was always just sharp enough to, you know, it was sort of the sharpest without going too far and keeping the best light. 6.3, tiny bit soft, but manageable. Now, with the prime lenses and ones that can't, you know, the ones that can't zoom, you are restricted to that focal length, and most wildlife doesn't appear at that focal length. Sometimes it does, but it's either further away or closer, and you're not going to be able to get it into that lens. So there's, you know, and prime lenses are mega heavy. This is actually quite light. Now, this was the weird thing about this lens. When I first put it on my camera, I went, oh my god, it's so much lighter than the Sigma 150 to 600. Gave it to my wife, she said, yeah, it's really light. And a couple of weeks later, I was sitting watching some YouTube videos on the lens, and the guy said, oh, it's something like 2.1 kilograms. And I went, what? There's no way it's that heavy. So I took it in and I weighed it, and it was about, whatever it was, 2.1 kilograms. And I thought, well, hang on, so what's the Sigma? So I got the Sigma and weighed it. It was about 100 grams less. And all I've been able to come up with is just that one side of the Sigma is heavier than the other, whereas on this the weight is distributed better. So it gives it the illusion that it's a lighter lens. You will feel it when you pick it up. You're like, is this even a real lens? It's so light. And yeah, I think it's just because it's yeah, the whole length it's distributed well. What else have I got to say? Yeah, so I mean, you get all the way down to 6.3, so just take the lens back, and then you're at 300 mil, and sorry, 200 with the crop factor is like whatever it is. What's that? 300 and something, and then you get your 6.3. And you know, for faster lenses, it's like you're losing a stop every. I mean, why are you getting a fast lens? Because you want to take bird pictures flying in lower light, which is not much of the day, right? And even then, you've only getting 10 minutes per stop. Every time, you know, every 10 minutes that passes, you're losing a stop of light. So you're spending all that money for a small period of the day when you can actually get shots. And if you're going for the prime lens, most of the time you can only really sit in a hide and wait for something to be just the right distance. And it's so heavy and it's so expensive. This is definitely the best option, especially as I'm filming more. If I weren't, I mean, yeah, that's the other thing I wanted to talk about. I've looked at some videos and somebody said that the Sigma, Sigma, it was either Sigma or Canon said, I think it was Sigma said that it doesn't communicate with the RF bodies, the mirrorless bodies, in terms of the eye tracking and animal tracking. And I've had it on I had the 150 to 600 on this R7 for several months. And it did track the eyes, but it wasn't brilliant. It was a bit pulsy, I think is the term. Sort of, you know, I mean, there'd be times when I'd be focused and you'd see it tracking the bird eye really well, and when you press the shutter button, it would defocus. Like what, you know? So you ended up getting the shot, but you had to like sort of. I found myself sort of pumping the button, and you would get that sharp shot. It was definitely better tracking than my Canon 90D. Now, I'll show you some pictures of. Sorry, there's always birds flitting around. I'm trying to keep an eye out. I'll show you some pictures from my Canon 90D with the Sigma 150 to 600. Impressive. And every time I move up, yes, I'm like, oh, this is a nice handy little feature this camera or this lens has that the last one didn't. Did I need to upgrade? I mean, if I was, you know, I suppose I've got a little bit of bit more disposable income than some people, fortunately, and other people have got the disposable income where they can spend 30 grand on lenses and different bodies, and that's, you know, that's you buy what you can afford and what you're willing to live with. And it's always a balancing act with me. Is that I'd rather go on this holiday than buy a certain lens or camera. And then I moved on to I upgraded to the R7 and had to get the adapter to fit the Sigma 150 to 600. Yeah, it seemed to work well. I mean, I love the eye tracking, the animal tracking, the electronic shutter speed. You have to be careful with that because of I've learned once I went to mirrorless, you get this rolling shutter, so you can capture the bird, you can do your 30 frames a second, but it comes at a cost. You know, the background is blurry, or I remember taking a picture of a bird in Hong Kong and it was flying, but it was flying past the building and all the tiles that were like that were actually like that, which looks odd. So I mean, in a couple of years that'll be the upgrade. Hopefully we'll get rid of the shutters, the rolling shutter, and we'll get I can use the full 30 frames. So now at the moment, as long as you take it on the bird flying in the sky, you're okay with the rolling shutter. So yeah, I've done well with it. I'll show you some pictures with the Canon R7 and the Sigma 150 to 600. You know, I got one of my best photos, which was the kestrel was coming into a pond at Elmley Nature Reserve, and everything took off, and it looked like it was going for a lapwing, and the lapwing braked, stuck its wings out, and the kestrel flew by it. Which I don't know what was going on in that situation, because a lapwing you assume is way too big. It's probably bigger than a kestrel. And at the same time, when you examine the picture, I've got 2 or 3 of them. The kestrel didn't have its claws out. Was it having a bit of fun? Was it practicing? I don't know. Strange behaviour. Yeah, I can show you some. I'll show you some sharp images from this combo here. Well, you know, once you get down to it's bright enough, and you can get your ISO 200 or 400 if you can get that low if it's strong enough. Very sharp. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's any sharper or less sharp than the Sigma 150 to 600. Yes, it's not as sharp as a prime or some of the other lenses, but nowadays you can do a lot of post. You can denoise, you can sharpen, you can add enlarge, upscale, and get pictures, you know, 95% of the way to an expensive lens. Yeah, so you might be asking what this is. This is just from the H4n recorder. I took it off and used a, you know, amateur job of gluing a peg to the hot shoe cover, and just used glue and just stuck it in there, and it covers the sound, the microphone, and it's done. I've not heard any wind getting into the camera. It does a really good job. So I've been working on trying to deal with this. I'll probably buy a mic. I've just bought a Rode mic for this, and I'll probably get a good one for this as well. So it's maybe more directional and cuts out any side noise. A little dish. What I've noticed with the it doesn't have the two options of stabilization, which is one for up and down, and two, so you have up and down only, but it doesn't do it for the vertical. So horizontal, so you can track, and it's the lens is not fighting the movement. It only has one, which, you know, I suppose it gets rid of you deciding which one to use. You've got no option. I do feel when I've been tracking a bird in flight moving around, it's been a little sticky. It's been like the lens has been fighting my movement. You learn with some muscle memory to compensate eventually. So it doesn't have that, which, you know, I've seen a few people moaning about, and it is a bit annoying. The other thing is, like on my Sigma, if you are fighting to get something past some trees or leaves, a bird, and it wasn't quite getting through, the eye tracking wasn't being able to get through, you could just override it with a slight turn of the focusing wheel. On this, it doesn't allow you to do that. You cannot. It's disabled in autofocus mode. So what you get is this button here. You have to press and then rotate, rotate the wheel, which is hidden in there somewhere. So you have to sort of remember each time where it is, or use some finger memory. And it's a faff. It's trying to get you, you know, because you're trying to hold the camera, take a picture, hold the lens up, press that button, turn the focusing wheel. Nightmare. So I mean, for now, I know you can buy, actual proper, adjustable things to go over the focusing wheels or the other wheels on a lens. So for the time being, I've just used some cable ties, one there and one on the other side. And I put my thumb, when I'm holding it up, I'll just put my thumb on the focusing on the button, and then I can just reach across with my finger and adjust the cable tie. It does the job. It's a little, and I knew when I got it, I was like, little bits were annoying me like that. And I think, why is it every time camera manufacturers bring something out, there's always a couple of big obvious things that they didn't do. They obviously know what they're doing. It's like not giving you everything you need. So next time they maybe it's to make you buy other lenses that do it, but don't do other things that this does, and back and forth and back. So you good. Well, okay, it's business. That's what Apple have done that with their old lightning cables, and it's being forced to be moved to USB-C. Anything else? Yeah. So just has thrown on some examples of. The footage is nice. The stabilization in video, that's the other thing, is much better than the Sigma. But I have noticed there's a bit of, if you were to stabilize yourself, handheld, like when I was in Hong Kong and I was testing it out, there was a heron in the water and I was leaning against a pole, my left hand, to stabilize the front of the camera, and after about 9 seconds it started to bounce. Now I've had a look online, and it says there's this thing with the R7 and this lens that they sort of fight each other. The internal image stabilization fights with the lens stabilization. But if I've tested it, and if it's 100% stationary on a tripod or on something like a wall, it doesn't do it. So it's like it seems to work when there's a hand movement. It's sensing a lot more vibration. Then it kicks in. If there's no vibration, it doesn't kick in. It can sense that. But if there's a little bit of vibration, it overcompensates, and it looks like you're bouncing up and down on a springboard. So I'm going to have to keep looking. Maybe there is a solution to that. Or I played with a few settings and couldn't get rid of it. Like I thought, maybe is it because it's in animal tracking mode, or it's spot focusing and all these things. Maybe one of those is so maybe I've got to go through some more features, or somebody have done a video that finally figured it out. I haven't done enough of an in-depth dive. But yeah, filming at 800 is where you get most problems, which is when it's expected, because that's what is that, 1300 mil on a crop sensor. And yeah, and if you bring it in, you really notice the difference. Once you're at sort of 400, 500, it's you can hold it pretty stationary. I end up sort of holding my breath so that I can sort of do 15-20 seconds while holding this up, and it does the job of stabilizing it pretty well. If the lens is all the way back, I don't have to hold my breath usually, but if it's right out, and then hold my arms up. And I say, luckily, I do lift weights. My hobby is my choice of exercise is powerlifting. So I can sit and hold a lens for ages. It gets tiring, of course, like anybody. But I meet lots of people that don't do photography at all, simply because they can't hold the equipment. So yeah, it does help. If you, let's say, a little advice to anybody getting into this game is go and lift some weights, do some do some bench press and some curls and some pull-ups and some dips. Anyway, yeah, this is my local Wood Martins Grove, and it's springtime and everything's going nuts. I've just got some footage of some goldcrest, which is nice. It's like things are allowing me to film them. Yesterday I've been filming long-tailed tits, collecting I don't know, dragonflies and other flying insects, and a real beak full of them. Here's the photo. And they were just, usually they're quite skittish, and these guys were just landing 3 feet in front of me. I'm like, no, we're catching insects, we don't care about you, take all your video and photos. That's great. It's in springtime, the birds are busy feeding and they don't care, so this is when to get some really good close shots. Either that or when it's freezing cold and birds are forced to come out and feed on berries and things and anything they can find. So yeah, the place is this my local park's 5-minute walk for me, and yeah, it's a good little walk. There's goldcrest, firecrest, nuthatch, great spotted woodpeckers. Last year I had some hobbies. I actually came back to look for those today to see if they've showed up again. I think they had a couple of chicks, and there's been mentions of hobbies coming into the UK now. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on this spot here where I found them last year to see if they show up again. Yeah, I think I've pretty much covered everything. This was this didn't come with the camera, the cover, but it was 20 quid. I think in England it's like 80 to 100. So I went for that, and it will keep the lens clean. The tripod mount doesn't come off. I've heard a few people complaining about that, but I never took mine off anyway, and it just goes on my my chest mount like that and comes off very quickly. So anything else to report? Nope. I'll be keeping it. If another lens comes out before then and I just so happen to go back to the Far East and there's something else to buy, I'll chop this in and get that. If you want to get your lens, it actually literally paid for my flight out there. The saving I made on this. So Hong Kong's the place to go. Yeah, I was looking at some other lenses and go, maybe I should buy a few. I think there was like a 300 f4 for like £300 or something. It's like, ooh. But no, I don't want to be that guy carrying loads of different lenses. You just get heavier and heavier and heavier. Anyway, so I hope I've given you enough information. Anything else you would like to ask that I've missed out, please drop it in the comments and I'll try and answer it.